I'll give 1 more minute so that members could join us. I know we're a bit late in starting, and sorry for the technical difficulties we're having to get on the system. So I just want to apologize for that. So I will start now. My name is Dr. Angela Cooper Brathwaite, and I'm the immediate past president of the Registered Nurses Association of Ontario. And it's my pleasure and honor to facilitate or moderate this session with the candidates for president-elect. I would just like to share a bit of information with you. In addition to general requirements for nomination, the president-elect candidates must have been a director on the RNAO board for a minimum of 2 consecutive years within the past 10 years, immediately preceding their nominations as president-elect. They must have at least 5 years of experience as a registered nurse or nurse practitioner. They have maintained a membership in RNAO for a minimum of 5 consecutive years preceding their nomination. They have demonstrated support for the mission and values of RNAO. They possess an understanding of the fiduciary stewardship of RNAO and experience in fiscal oversight, including review of financial statements and audits. They must demonstrate an active interest in the work of RNAO and its domain, including policy advocacy, communications, membership, and international affairs and best practice guidelines, and participate in an interview with the Leadership Succession Committee, which they've completed. And the format for the candidates today, they each have 5 minutes to talk about themselves. They would be timed, and following the introduction of themselves to us, I, as the moderator, will ask 3 questions. And we had selected, based on random selection, the first candidate to answer first would be Claudette Holloway, followed by Maria, and that will continue on. And we do have 2 additional questions from the audience that was sent pre this session that I will also take before I open up the session for questions from you. And each person have an opportunity to ask questions, maximum 2 minutes. And then the candidates have a closing remark. So the order of the speaker based on random selection, as I mentioned before, is Claudette Holloway.
Thank you.
So now I would ask Claudette to tell us about herself for 5 minutes, and then we move to Maria.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and good evening to everyone. My name is Claudette Holloway, a registered nurse and a member of RNAO for over 25 years. I respect and honor the Indigenous peoples on whose land I now reside. I offer my condolences to the families who are further traumatized by the recent horrific discovery of 215 children's bodies. There is much work ahead to find truths and implement effective system transformation towards meaningful reconciliation. My condolences in remembrance of the 4 lives lost in London, Ontario, due to an act of hate. My thoughts and prayers are for the child who is struggling for life. Each violent act reawakens the injustices that has affected so many of us and our families historically and recently. I am passionate about bringing people together in advancing health policy to reduce and eliminate all forms of discrimination and racism. We must tackle systemic racism against Blacks, Indigenous, and all racialized populations in nursing and the healthcare system. I acknowledge the tremendous courage and commitment of nurses and healthcare workers who press on, and those who have lost their lives in the fight against the pandemic. It is an honor to be listed on the slate of nominations for president-elect. I am qualified for this role because for years I have just demonstrated progressive involvement with RNAO. I've participated on the board and committees, engaged with members, and met with politicians to speak out for nursing and health. During 4 years as a member on the board of directors, I participated in decision-making to protect and advance RNAO ends. I gained experience in governance, leadership, and political advocacy. I represented RNAO at several political events, and I worked with Region 7's executive to achieve the Chapter of the Year award in 2016. Under my leadership, Region 7 executive partnered with other regions to host celebrations, educational, and political events. We also reached out to acknowledge the Alberta nurses' work during the terrible fires. We must work together to support our fellow nurses. I continue to learn from the membership and role modeling that is available through RNAO activities and the knowledge and evidence from education sessions that members and RNAO staff provide. I bring experience from filling in for the president at events, York Television's election panel, political party events, presentations to nursing students, the annual Medical Association event, Remembrance Day observances, and the burial of our dear Zara and her children. These opportunities provided me a chance to grow and strengthen my ability in handling challenging conversations, critical thinking, and networking effectively. In 2018, I received the RNAO Student Mentorship Award. I provided leadership to the Region 7 executive, and we were successful to engage over 400 student memberships for RNAO. I belong to several RNAO interest groups. These assist me to stay informed on current issues and trends. I am the executive director at the Jamaican Canadian Association of Nurses, a charitable organization founded in 2014 by an existing RNAO member. Here I continue to grow professionally and broaden my leadership skills at the senior level. I recently retired from Toronto Public Health, where the battle against pandemic highlighted the action of public health nurses who work mostly unnoticed to reduce health inequities and improve population health. I am committed to staying informed on the rapid changes in healthcare and the gaps that nurses have identified in the system. I am gaining ability in the use of Twitter to message decision makers. My entire educational path, including the doctoral level and being a Canadian certified health executive, helps me to express ideas, engage effectively to learn, and to be prepared for system transformation dialogue.
1 minute.
I am proud to be one of the 46,000 RNAO members. We double this number, I say, each one bring one. Each member bring one new or inspire a member to return. In closing, my career path has spanned frontline management, acute care, midwifery, community health. I am ready and prepared to serve as your president-elect. I have engaged with you on many levels. You see me on TV drumming to launch the Make Some Noise campaign, and I sang the national anthem for you at the AAGM. I am glad that I found and joined RNAO. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claudette. And now we'll ask Maria Raag to give her address. Maria.
Thank you so much, Angela, and the members of the RNAO and Claudette for that amazing introduction. I'd like to, as well, echo Claudette's feelings and thoughts and mentions with regards to acknowledging the land on which we stand and have been given to use. The events of most recent days, of course, cannot be without acknowledgement and thoughtful process. And of course, as we see that RNAO is continuing to ring the drum and the light that we need to shine on all these issues of injustice, diversity, inclusion, and equity. So again, I would just like to introduce myself. I'd like to honor the opportunity to let you know that I am currently working as a clinical nurse specialist in palliative care within Toronto, and I've been in the nursing profession for more than 30 years. And I'm committed to ensuring quality care and person and family-centered nursing practice. I've worked and volunteered in leadership roles in various settings, including primary care, public health, acute care, community care, and hospice care. I've been involved in the nursing practice and given care to individuals and families across their lifespan, the youngest being 23 weeks and the oldest being 110 years old. And at present, I am part of a leadership team that is driving the culture of excellence and compassion and person-centered care as it relates to palliative care. Throughout this time, I've been an active and engaged member of RNAO for close to 30 years in different capacities, including as a nursing student, a nurse practitioner, an advanced practice nurse, and registered nurse. Within these roles, I've had the privilege and honor to represent nursing and Ontarians in many active ways to ensure the vision of speaking out for nursing and speaking for health. These have included multiple executive roles in multiple interest groups. I've been part of the membership of the board of directors for the last 5 years, serving on multiple committees, including Nursing Practice, Nursing Now Awards, and the editorial board. Throughout my time as a member of the RNAO, I've continued to pursue the mission of excellence and advocacy in driving change in Ontario's healthcare system by being part of the development of several BPGs, being an assembly member, participating in several Queen's Park Days, and successfully submitting resolutions that as a member of RNAO and through the real leadership that they have envisioned and embraced in me, I've been able to develop networks and collaborations that have positioned me to represent the nursing voice for those who we care for at many local, provincial, national, and international forums. I am passionate about the RNAO and its role in nursing practice and the health of all Ontarians. This past year has shown me more than ever that it is an extraordinary time for nursing practice, and the RNAO as a professional association representing that practice in Ontario. There are many challenges and opportunities facing us, and those we're committed to care for. Some of those include the artificial intelligence and information technology to deliver compassionate care, how best to reflect the moral principles of justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion in our day-to-day, moment-to-moment practice, and how best to make use of our knowledge, skills, and judgment in helping to create a sense of psychological safety for all persons, and the critical significance of mental health and well-being of persons and the way in which mental health of nurses affects the standards of care that we are able to provide. I believe that we must remember that the innovation is born in moments of crisis. And since the time of Florence Nightingale, nursing practice has faced challenges in the delivery of care and advocacy for persons, families, communities, and populations. Nightingale identified what persons in her care needed not only to survive, but to become vibrant members of their society. The spirit of discovery and innovation that she embodied has been the seed for the growth of the modern nursing practice, and RNAO is the leader of that charge here in Ontario and has inspired me to embrace this opportunity to seek to represent you in the role of president in meeting these challenges. As nurses, we are responsible for assessing the given challenges, applying the evidence to develop appropriate interventions, evaluating those outcomes and those interventions, dynamically turning these challenges into opportunities for change in practice and the development of new practices, and finally monitoring those trends in nursing practices. I want to close by expressing my commitment to continue to help grow the mandate and membership of RNAO in shaping those trends and needs in nursing practices by attending to and helping give voice to all RNs, NPs, and nursing students, persons and their families in the province of Ontario. I believe that is only when we see ourselves in those we care for and represent, and they see themselves in us, that we can truly meet the demands and the principles of justice, equity, inclusivity, and diversity. These are the values that lie at the heart of our profession, a profession which I commit through this role to continue to help lead RNAO into the nursing profession of the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria. And now it's my opportunity to ask questions and of the candidates. And since by poll, Claudette was the first person to speak. So my question to you, Claudette, and then it would be to Maria. And you have 2 minutes to answer once I finish asking the question. Historically, RNAO presidents have greatly influenced the strategic direction of the association. As president, what will be your contributions to RNAO?
Thank you for the question. My first contribution would be to try and strengthen our membership, increase our membership. I would like to move forward on the one member, each one brings one, so that we can increase our impact that we would have on decision making. We also need to move forward to deal with the challenges that our nurses have faced in the pandemic. So bringing compensation to the forefront, needs for mental health to the forefront, and also advocating for the clients that we serve in terms of what their needs are, particularly in long-term care, those who are challenged by mental health, those assistive devices that they need. Also, I would like to advance, we really have to advance inclusion, effective inclusion. So all these things will go together to strengthen the healthcare system, strengthen nursing, and that will ultimately undergird the support that we give to our clients so that we, and our patients, so that we can have truly, as in our mission, have that excellence in care, and we can advance health care policy.
Thank you, Claudette. And now I'll ask Maria the same question.
Thank you, Claudette. Thank you, Angela. I believe my contributions to the RNAO in this role would be reflective of what the membership and what has been happening in this devastating times. I think what we have seen is brought to the highlight is really, and what has touched me in terms of practice during this pandemic is the frailty in which we as nursing practice and nurses as we practice in our society, the frailty of the healthcare systems and the social networks that RNAO has so valiantly tried to protect and move forward. So I believe that what I would like to contribute and what my contributions would be is to bring the face of nursing into as I was talking about, who we speak for is reflected in who we are. So ultimately looking at trying to advance the number of things that identify the weaknesses within our healthcare system and trying to build upon those as nurses to strengthen that system for those people that we represent in the province of Ontario. Some of those things would include
30 seconds.
Trying to raise the membership with regards to nursing students and bringing the nursing students on board as they progress to become nurses within our organization, and ultimately really focusing on those issues around mental health and what's happening across not just the nursing practice, but also within those that we represent, and really strengthening those systems in a way in which we can represent and ensure that the nursing voice is at all the tables.
That's time.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria. So now again, the second question now, it will go to Maria first. And that question, as president, you will be responsible for leading the board to carry out its governance functions. Under what circumstances would the board dismiss the CEO?
I think there are several circumstances in which that can be reflected in what would happen with regards to the CEO. I think if there is any sort of review of what the CEO is doing in terms of fiduciary responsibility and how the CEO is maintaining the financial status of how the organization is doing, that certainly could bring about an opportunity for the board to examine this role of the CEO, as well as if the CEO is not representing those things in which the RNAO is meant to stand for, including the ends And if in any way they are bringing disrepute or a sense of disgrace onto the organization within itself, these would be some examples or circumstances in which the CEO is representing themselves in a way that is not in keeping with the mission, vision, and statements as the board has put forward.
Thank you, Maria. And now it's your turn, Claudette, to answer the same question.
Thank you, Maria, for taking that starter one. So under the circumstances is that the CEO or any of us, none of us are above the law. So if there's some kind of a criminal situation, that would definitely be a circumstance to dismiss the CEO. But we know that we have a process in place where we have to meet with the executive. We would have to make sure we've got all our legal ends covered, that we put that person on, you know, what you would say, put them on hold for, you know, they're not working. Have someone, one of the directors in the organization, take the lead and have them suspended. That's what I'm looking for, suspended for a time, because that would be something that we would have to come to the decision to dismiss them. There's other circumstances, such as Maria mentioned. If the CEO is not following through on the mission, supporting the mission and the direction of the organization, that would be an issue to dismiss the CEO. But we also have to look at, have we done our duty as a board? Have we made sure that we've hired a CEO with competencies, that we have orientated them properly, that we brought them up to speed, that we met with them frequently, that we documented what their progress is? Because if they're not coming along with their growth in terms of taking on the job, then, you know, we would have to say, past that period, you know, that's something that we'd have to dismiss them for.
30 seconds.
So what it is that we have to make sure that as a board, that we are safeguarding, that we are protecting the organization and the members that we serve in terms of RNAO.
Thank you very much, Claudette. And should we draw another question? Ifra? We have a third question, and I'm saying, should we take a poll who goes next, or we just let it go to Claudette? Is the third question?
Yes, I believe it's Claudette's turn to begin.
Okay, all right, Claudette. The next question is, RNAO's members and its board often speak out on emerging and current topics. As president, you would be required to do so and amplify the voice or voices of RNs, NPs, and nursing students. How would you deal with an employer who says you can't speak out about such issues, be it on social media or in the press?
Well, one cannot silence one's voice when issues have to be addressed. As long as we're not bringing any comment about a specific organization that we're working for, but we have the right to address issues on social media and the press, and we don't reveal any private information about anyone. We have to speak out. If we're not allowed to speak out, we would never be able to change policy. We would never be able to represent our nurse practitioners, our students, and our RNs. So I would, you know, we know in the past that one of our presidents had to change, you know, she was given the choice. If it was me, I guess I would have to do the same thing. I'd have to say, look, this has to be done. And how can we work together that I can be very clear that I'm speaking out broadly to represent the provincial issues. This isn't about a specific organization. Unfortunately, if the issues concern the organization that my organization is challenging, you know, they're guilty of, then unfortunately they need to do that. But I've had experience where I worked in an organization where I had to say, unless A, B, or C is changed, I'm going to leave. And that was because of that specific organization. But I don't believe that we can be two-minded. We have to be, as president, we have to be one-minded. We know that what we have to do We need to speak with our organizations to let them know before we even run for these positions that this is what we are going to be faced with, and this is what the situation is going to be. So I always believe in communicating with my my reporting manager to let them know what my plans are so that we can be very clear before we even start. But one cannot be silenced when things are happening, as we see in the current workplace, where nurses are not protected, where our clients are not receiving excellent care because we haven't put resources in place. So no, I would say that we have to speak out.
Thank you, Claudette. And now I will ask Maria to respond to that question.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Claudette. An excellent response, and I echo what Claudette has said. I guess one of the reflections I have on this question is that, in fact, I think that this is something that I have heard from a number of nurses out in the field being concerned about. And, you know, as president and as an association, I think this is the amazing pieces of what the association brings, which is that strength of voice and support. And I think part of that is again, that anticipatory and that willingness to put those that you care for above the issues that the employer is concerned about in speaking out. I think that from my point of view as president, part of even the consideration of this role is being able to approach those that I work for and be able to let them know. But advocacy is a big role of what we do every day. And I think one of the strengths of the organization itself is that it's there to support you. And so I feel great strength in being able to go to my employer, if my employer were to say something like that.
30 seconds.
And highlight the importance of being able to speak out about the issues that mean something to nursing and the RNAO. And I would give the same advice to anyone within the organization, that the organization is here to support you. So I feel very strong in being able to meet the employer where they're at and be able to protect both the role that I have to play, but more importantly, the roles that you play.
Thank you, Maria, for that response. And now we have two questions that were sent ahead of this session from the audience, potential audience, that I would now ask, and then I will give the present audience opportunity to ask a question. So one of the questions that came forward is one: what will be your priorities as president-elect? In other words, what would you like to achieve as your legacy as president of RNAO, the regional board representatives? What would you like to achieve as board members? So the first part belongs to the president-elect. I'll repeat it. What will be your priorities as president-elect? In other words, what would you like to achieve as your legacy as president of RNAO? So who's going to take that question first?
We'll start with Maria.
Yes.
Thank you. This is an amazing question, and I in terms of the priorities, I think I highlighted at my opening remarks the honor and privilege to be able to say that I've been in the profession of nursing for close to 30 years plus, but more importantly, as a member of RNAO, I think the legacy and the priorities for me is membership, and that idea of the advancement of the nursing voice as the voice of the people in the province of Ontario. Ultimately, the legacy would be an organization that continues to be that voice, and ideally the voice of all across the province, really being able to bring some increasing that idea of equity, diversity, inclusion, and justice, and giving an opportunity to really have the board, as well as the work that the membership is doing, continue to reflect and embrace all that is included in those principles, and really have a membership that is reflective of the society that we represent. A voice at every table.
Thank you so much, Maria. And now it's your turn, Claudette.
Thank you, Maria, for heading that one off. As mentioned before, I believe that as president, I want to improve and increase our membership, because I believe in the power of RNAO, and I think we can double our power. We need to be at those tables. Priorities is by listening to the members. We know that we've heard from our agency nurses, from our intensive care nurses, our nurses on the front line, long-term care, our nurse practitioners, the challenges that our students have faced, all because of the pandemic, to bring all these things to the forefront. So it's all combined in membership. We also need to not forget the other things that we have always been working on, such as, you know, wages, wages for our low wage workers, you know, increasing that minimum wage, housing, making sure that our healthcare stays private. There are so many things, but out of it all, making sure that we have that inclusion and diversity. And at the tables, we are still waiting to get a nurse at the table. So that is one of the priorities. I am not really so much concerned as a legacy. I think my legacy is going to come from as we move, because everything is moving so rapidly, that we can get some of these things in place. And to me, that would be enough, so that we can increase our voice, not only across the province, but to influence others, and our role that we played, not only domestically, but in the global context as well. So I would say that let's work together. Working together, let's develop our allies. Let's find ourselves at the tables where we can really have our voice heard. And so that we are representing the membership, let's make sure that we are listening. So that is something that I would like to do. And I've already started listening to when I've come across different people and they've told me their stories. And it gives me a glimpse, because I can't be everywhere in the nursing profession. So I rely on people to bring information and say, this is these are the challenges that we're facing. So I want a member-driven organization to deal with all of this.
Thank you, Claudette. And the next question. In what direction do you see RNAO work being steered during your leadership time? How do you think succession planning for our CNO should be guided? And I am going to ask that to Claudette first to respond.
Okay. First of all, I would deal with the succession planning. Succession planning is so important in these days of the boomer generation retiring. So that succession planning can start from within, but the process should also be opened so that application is available to everyone. But within the organization, because what happens if our CEO has to step away because of some kind of a personal matter or family matter, we should have someone with the organization from the senior management already being able to shadow the CNO. For the CEO, I think that should say, I hope that's what it's saying, CEO. So in terms of seeing the...
We can't hear you, Claudette. Claudette, you need to unmute yourself. Okay.
Oh, I don't know how that muted. Sorry. In terms of steering the board, the work of the president and the board members, from what is brought in from all our different regions and interest groups, that is what is going to steer the leadership so that we can, as a board, get together and look at what are the priorities. And we know that everything seems to be a priorities, but there is, we have to set some kind of an order. But there may be some themes that can go together so that we can, move that work of RNAO forward. Whatever that work is, we know it is speaking out more. It's speaking out more for health, speaking out more for nursing, being at tables and giving people who haven't had the chance the opportunity to come in and shadow so that we can strengthen our body, so that we have leadership, not only formally, but informally, developing over time so that people are in positions and ready. There's a lot of diverse experience out there. We need to capitalize on that.
Thank you, Claudette. And now, Maria, it's your turn to answer this question.
Thank you, Claudette, and for an amazing reflection. I'm trying to think what more I could add. I think that the direction to see RNAO work being steered during my leadership time, if I were in that type of position, ultimately, I think that what I would want to see happen is really what RNAO has been doing and continues to do. It's that mentoring, collaboration, networking, advocacy, and really the work of building the voice of nursing, because the voice of nursing and the members is the voice of the people that we are caring for and those that we represent. So I think, what I would like to continue to see in terms of the work of RNAO is raising those voices, ensuring that those members that we have and that we continue to build that membership are being mentored and given those opportunities to shadow and be with and be at tables, just as I was as a nursing student and throughout my career because of RNAO, to really bring those leaders to all the tables that are available, and at access for shaping healthcare in the province and the social network. In terms of succession planning, I really think that that RNAO is doing that. I believe that part of that is all the work that they do in terms of leadership and the work that they are able to do around the different times that students spend time with the CEO at the and shadowing the CEO, as well as there is an amazing structure within the board, as well as the management team, continuing to provide that mentorship and leadership and opportunities to grow and be ready for when that time comes, that they can just step in as the time comes.
Thank you, Maria. And now we will open for questions from our audience. And if you post your questions in the chat box, then Ifra could read those questions for me so I could ask them to the president candidate.
We have no current questions, but feel free to enter your questions in the Q&A box or the chat box.
Angela, maybe I can pose a question if that's okay, if there's no questions at this point, or do you have something you would like to ask?
I could ask you a question. I could ask you guys, hold on here. I always have a question.
I have one question. I just was wondering, Angela, if you could give any advice in terms of your time. I know you've had extensive experience, but what would be the one piece of advice that you would give us?
I would say credibility and integrity. If you have that integrity, you would stand up for what is just, what is right. And regardless of what oppositions you may encounter, if you have integrity, you will be able to do the job. Yes, knowledge, some of the knowledge you bring to the position and some you gain through the position. But I say having integrity, having a vision for RNAO. So one of the things that I did, I was able to tell the CEO, these are some things I would like to do as the oncoming president-elect, okay? So I had focused on that. Membership was one of those things. When I started, it was 41,000 members. And of course, our membership did increase. And of course, that's not just my initiative, but it was collaboration across the organization, including RNAO staff, developing strategies, how we could share our knowledge and benefits of RNAO and encourage people to grow and develop, plus just face-to-face talking. Also, I brought to the table cultural competence, as well as I was one of the persons who brought the criteria to be changed for the president-elect. Since the former criteria were anyone could have run for president, and having people serve on the board give them a good picture and view of how the processes work, how governance work. Because some of us who have worked in leadership positions, we might have to do operations as well as governance. So my question to you will be, as RNAO president, if you're elected as RNAO president, what's the difference between your role and the CEO roles?
Would you like to go first, Angela?
Last, I can't remember who answered last.
I can take a shot at that.
Okay.
So from my experience on the board and working on other boards, the CEO is responsible for the operations of the organization, and the board provides the governance and leadership. But it's very important for the board and the CEO to work very closely together so that they can meet the strategic ends of the organization. So much like how Angela was saying that she brought the her list of what she was going to do, then that makes it clear, because unless we communicate clearly with the CEO what we want to bring about, then she's not able to provide us the assistance that we need to get that into place. And I acknowledge that the role of the staff are very, very important. I really have benefited from them over the years. And that importance then comes back to the board, that we must be leaders. We must look at the big picture. We have to stay out of operations that don't get down in the minutia, as in that book about boards that we've all been encouraged to read. Make sure that we are not so busy doing microscoping of documents. Let's get our eyes up on policy and health policy and how we can bring that about, because there's so much we can, from what Marie and I both mentioned, there's so many things that we have to address based on the pandemic and what was there before and what is to come, and with baby boomers retiring and the nursing students now that we have, the additional students that are coming on, and the education system, we need to really get these things going. So there's enough for us to do as at the governance level, and let the CEO manage the operations. But we have to, as the board, still oversee that operations. We have to make sure that things are still running and that we have controls in place and that we have parameters put in place for our CEO and our staff, and then we can go forward.
Thanks. Thank you, Claudette, sorry. Now, Maria, it's your turn.
Yes, thank you, Claudette. A very great insight. And I think other pieces that I might add is yes, I've had the great fortune of being on several different boards, large, smaller, and I think clearly the differences or the separation of the roles is really that big picture versus the smaller picture. Of course, the CEO has the big picture in mind, but it's at the direction of the board and at the and the president is kind of that leadership that for the board and the overall governance of board activity, and the membership and that bigger vision of where are we going to, and the CEO is really helping to enact on a day-to-day basis what that looks like and make sure the mechanisms are in place to enact those things that the board has ensured that they've heard from the membership and brought forward. That close relationship obviously is integral to a successful organization, 100%. And again, the issue also is that, of course, on a purely basic level for most, well, for at least for our board anyway, the president is a volunteer position, whereas the CEO is a paid position, and therefore there are some things that absolutely the president must attend to, along with the board, in terms of assessing and evaluating the performance of the chief executive officer.
Thank you very much. So at this time, because we have no further questions, I would like to ask for closing remarks. So now I'll ask Maria to go first, followed by Claudette, and that will bring the close of this session. So Maria.
Thank you, Angela, and thank you to the RNAO. This has been an exciting and I'll say nerve-wracking opportunity to embrace, and the reason being is the ominous and most largesse of what it entails to be representing you as a membership in this capacity. I want to really reflect on that. My involvement with RNAO continues and will always be part of the practice of nursing for me. And as a membership, I want to be able to let you know that in whatever capacity that I am in, as long as I am calling myself a nurse, I am working as an RNAO member. This role is really something that I am very grateful to even be able to consider. And I hope that you will take the time to really assess and review what it is that you're looking for. What I bring to the table is something that I believe we all bring to the table, which is a desire to continue to reflect who we are as nurses and ensure that we will always be at those tables representing those people that we care for on a day-to-day basis. So thank you for the opportunity, and I will pass it along.
Thank you very much, Maria, for your contribution and participation in this discussion. And now, Claudette, it's your turn.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Maria for acknowledging the very challenging aspect of going through this very strong process. But I admire RNAO for putting it in place because we understand the seriousness of the position. It does make it somewhat nerve-wracking, but then as we've spoken to politicians and we've spoken to membership, we know we always have that little edge of nervousness, but which kind of prepares us because we know we are not there representing ourselves, we're there representing RNAO and its members. So that's what I want to continue to do. I want to be able to listen. I want to be able to speak out, knowing that we have our membership supporting us from behind, and that I understand that I can continue to learn. As Angela told us, that even in the position, one can continue to learn. I'm a lifelong learner, so I am looking for that. I am looking for that ongoing learning and bringing what I have with me. As with the remarks about, you know, if your organization didn't want you to speak out, no, I have to speak out. And I'm not speaking out because this is what RNAO says. It's because I believed in it. I identify with it, and I can speak out from the heart. And knowing that sometimes, you know, you may make a bit of a mistake, but from the mentorship over the years, I've learned how to, you know, improve self, continue to learn. I realize that we're at that level place, registered nurses, nurse practitioners, as members, nursing students, we are all here to advocate for the clients that we serve. They need us. Many people are not able to speak out for themselves, and we're there to speak out for them. Many of our politicians, they don't know. Recently, Maria and I were on a Take Your MPP to Work session for Region 7, and there were a lot of things that our politicians didn't know, and we were able to bring it to them. So I think that ongoing building awareness and education and providing leadership so that we can take RNA forward and help our members to grow, so that the organization continues to function in the years ahead. We're coming up to our 100th year. Let's get that membership going. And as Maria said, I'm here for RNAO.
Thank you very much, Claudette. And on behalf of RNAO, members of the board of directors, our membership, and those who are engaged online today and who will engage, because your session was videotaped, so members could look at it and review it. Thank you so much for participating, and I look forward to collaborating with you in whatever capacity you do, and best wishes in all your future endeavors. Thank you, and this session is closed. Bye.
Thank you.